either support the Constitution or you do not. And right now, this president is literally just trampling all over the Constitution right now and doing it in plain sight. And so we're going to do everything in our power. Beatrice Ponce de Leon, Deputy Mayor, we're going to make sure that people know their rights.
Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson there talking about the Trump administration and as he sees the enforcement of federal immigration law being a violation of the Constitution, or at least how Johnson sees it playing out under the Trump administration. Welcome in. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. Today's going to be a big day with President Donald Trump's efforts continuing to do mass deportations, but you've also got the governor of Illinois set to go into a House committee, the Oversight Committee, to testify to the state's migrant policies. Let's take a look really quick here on X at the Oversight Committee's X page. And again, we'll review a lot of this tomorrow here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, if I didn't tell you that. But here we've got a video that the House Oversight Committee has put out saying they're ready to have these governors testify. New York's Governor Kathy Hochul, Tim Walz, governor from Minnesota, also former Democratic vice presidential candidate for Kamala Harris, and Governor J.B. Pritzker here from Illinois. Let's just hear a little bit of what this produced video from the House Oversight Committee has.
$1 million since 2023 on migrants.
Is Chicago a sanctuary city?
A 40-year policy of being a welcoming city.
You're the mayor. You don't have the math in front of you.
It's the last
That's
4
why
years,
you're a failing
which
mayor.
is you're providing an enormous amount of aid to illegal aliens, aiding and abetting criminals who have come into our country illegally.
Why are you letting rapists back out on the streets of Boston?
That is not true. That is not what's happening in Boston.
So you guys just snagged a previously deported, convicted child rapist. Is that unusual out here?
Not in Massachusetts. It's not unusual.
Look, I'm going to do everything that I can to protect our undocumented immigrants. They're residents of our state.
We say you are welcome here. You're welcome with open arms, and we'll work to keep you safe.
As long as I am governor of Minnesota, we will welcome immigrants with gratitude for their contributions to our communities. This young man was killed by an illegal immigrant in Texas that never should have been in our country.
Lincoln Riley, Ruby Garcia, Rachel Morin, Jocelyn Nungaray, the woman set on fire in the New York subway, and other crimes that would not have taken the lives of these people.
So that's, again, a highly produced video the U.S. House Oversight Committee put out on their X page. I imagine they're probably going to air that as well during the committee. But then you're going to have Governor Pritzker get up there and talk about the state's migrant sanctuary policies. We heard a little bit late last week as to some of what he might talk about, and in particular saying that, you know, the state has its Trust Act and its Way Forward Act preventing state and local law enforcement from cooperating with federal immigration officials because of what the governor is likely going to lean into heavy, the lack of immigration reform. Comprehensive immigration reform. It's the terminology we use and we hear Democrats use all the time in an effort to try to relax immigration laws or make it easier for people to come into the country. I mean, this was a line that the Democrats used all throughout the Biden administration, while apparently the border was wide open, letting millions of people cross, not through ports of entry, but cross the border. And the argument was, well, we've got so much immigration issues because we need comprehensive immigration reform. And one of the first things that President Donald Trump said when he addressed members of Congress after getting in for a second non-consecutive term, largely based, what pundits believe, on the president's efforts to try to curb illegal immigration and do mass deportations. But the president said it didn't take a change of the law, it just took a new president to secure the border. But now we've got, millions of individuals in this country who came across the border, not through a port of entry, but illegally. And it's a pretty heavy focus right now. You have Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, having to field questions yesterday about, the process of which the Trump administration is going about doing deportations in places like Los Angeles, and where that's going to be next, and how they're combating any kind of civil unrest people may have on the streets.
Government is to preserve law and order, and this administration embraces that sacred responsibility. Democrats like Governor Gavin Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass shamefully failed to meet their sworn obligations to their citizens. They didn't have the courage to do the right thing and protect law-abiding Californians from rioters. That's why President Trump deployed the National Guard and mobilized Marines to end the chaos and restore law and order. The mob violence is being stomped out. The criminals responsible will be swiftly brought to justice, and the Trump administration's operations to arrest illegal aliens are continuing unabated. When the initial
So what are we going to see happen elsewhere? That's in California, right? And you've got the lawsuit that Gavin Newsom filed against the Trump administration saying that him commandeering the National Guard to protect federal buildings when there's people throwing Molotov cocktails and broken pieces of sidewalk at law enforcement. He says that's unconstitutional and illegal and a dictatorship and tyranny and such. So Gavin Newsom's lawsuit, a preliminary action was not allowed, but the lawsuit still continues. But where else is this going to happen? Yesterday, the city of Chicago, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and his various officials, they held a news conference yesterday, and his chief of staff talked about how they're expecting fully that ICE is going to be doing some raids in Chicago.
Just as I mentioned before, yesterday the notice was given to agents that they have 48 hours to deploy, that there will be 5 cities that are targeted, Democrat-led cities, Chicago being one of them for sure. And that they were going to be targeting, workplaces in terms of the raids with the mini tanks, with arms, with also chemical agents.
And you got to think to yourself, law enforcement sees what's happened in California with federal agents being approached and attacked by. Are they protesters or what are they? How do you characterize them? Being approached with civil unrest, I guess is one way you could put it. But Christina Passione-Zayas, the chief of staff for Brandon Johnson, said that they are seeing and hearing about deceptive practices that the federal government's using to nab people here illegally.
Last week, there were deceptive practices where they text people who were expecting to go into a place to do the check-in with their immigration proceedings, and of course they were intercepted by ICE. So we can expect all of those types of tactics, inclusive of evading due process, deceptive tactics, and concealing identity, along with some of those more aggressive actions that we witnessed in LA.
And then just thinking about...
Again, this is from a news conference yesterday in different angles and asked questions and such. The mayor, Brandon Johnson, who himself testified. You saw clips of it during that House Oversight video that we aired a little bit of. But he reacted to the idea that ICE is going to be performing some raids in Chicago.
As far as any particular action that the city or the state or the county or what we would do, particularly as a city, This is a necessary fight for all of us to be able to push back. Whether we use the courts or whether we continue to protest and raise our voices, dissent matters in this moment. Now look, he is abusing his power. I am counting on all of Chicago to resist in this moment, because whatever particular vulnerable group is being targeted today, another group will be next.
So he's actively telling people to resist. What does that look like? Is that going to be people wearing masks, coming up to Chicago police, trying to be a barrier to keep the peace from federal officials that are trying to conduct federal immigration enforcement? And are those protesters, or some are in the chat room live saying that they're militants or anarchists, or even President Donald Trump is saying that this is a paid opposition of sorts. And we're going to see even more of this expected this weekend across the country. How the president's going to react to it, it'll be interesting. But, in Illinois, we're going to hear a lot about this from Governor J.B. Pritzker when he testifies in front of the U.S. House Committee a little bit later on, less than an hour away it's going to start. But Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson says, hey, we've got a welcoming city ordinance. The state laws are in place to help the immigrant communities.
We are a welcoming city, and that ordinance is the law of the land, the Illinois Trust Act. It's the law of the land, which simply states that our local law enforcement will not coordinate or engage or behave as federal agents. Now, if there's a federal warrant that is available, then that provides space for a different type of assessment. As far as the role and the responsibility of our police department, it is to ensure that protesters can live out the Constitution safely. That is their responsibility. They also have a responsibility to ensure that, in the event there are actions that are moving, that it is effectively coordinated, right? Because we don't want anyone to get injured. And so there's a certain element, I don't know what this person's definition of crowd control is, but I can tell you as mayor of the city of Chicago, I want to make sure that whether that crowd is 5 or 5,000 or 50,000, that they're protected. That is the role and the responsibility of our police department.
But again, the mayor also encouraging everyone in Chicago, he said, to resist. Resist who? The ICE? Resist Chicago police? Resist the Cook County Sheriff's Department? What does that mean to resist? Is it just standing on the street corner with a sign, or is it actually doing direct action against what they see as an injustice, or as Johnson essentially said, Trump's a terrorist?
Look, I remember a few stand-ups ago when I talked about what terrorism looks like. This is it. There should be no question to what our country would look like had the Confederacy won. We're seeing it on full display. And there's no art form in this. This is literally just using the power of the federal apparatus to insert its will on whomever. Right now in our country, there's no check and balance. It doesn't exist right now. Speaker Johnson, who is third in charge if something were to happen to the President of the United States of America, won't even raise his voice. As a believer in faith and justice, these individuals are cowards. They are hypocrites. They're dangerous. There's one branch of government right now in this country, one branch. He has taken over the courts. The Congress says nothing. And so people are terrified. But in the city of Chicago, we are going to remain vigilant and firm in protecting what is sensible about our existence. And that's ensuring that the Constitution is actually maintained. Here's the bottom line is this. You either support the Constitution or you do not. And right now, this president is literally just trampling all over the Constitution right now and doing it in plain sight.
So again, Mayor Johnson, critical of the Trump administration, saying that there's only one branch of government. I guess he could have said that it's a uniparty in Washington, D.C. right now. That's the election, how it came out. Republicans have the House, the Senate, and the executive branch with Donald Trump in the office of president. And also what most believe, a conservative Supreme Court panel of majority conservative justices there. But, looking internally, Illinois, we're essentially a uniparty. Democrats control every statewide constitutional officer from governor to treasurer. They have supermajorities in the House and the Senate. Chicago hasn't had a Republican mayor for decades. I guess it's good for some, but not for the other. It's always important to put the shoe on the other foot. But that wasn't the only conversation happening yesterday. Of course, the immigration conversation is going to be dominating for weeks ahead, if not for the rest of the Trump administration. But over in Washington, D.C., a couple of Illinois Congress people joined with others for the 13th anniversary of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA. Illinois U.S. Representative Delia Ramirez taking to a microphone outside the Capitol yesterday, sharing her immigrant story.
I'm going to be honest with you. The most important thing you need to know is that I am the proud daughter of Guatemalan immigrants, that I'm a citizen by birthright, and I'm the wife of an incredible man who until recently was a DACA recipient, a dreamer. And I'm the congresista of a welcoming state that this fascist government attacks, but we will not allow to walk us back our love and our commitment to our immigrant communities. I want to start by acknowledging how difficult these last few months have been. They haven't just been difficult, they have been painful. Some of you are having to make safety plans for your community, for your family, for your immediate family. Some of you are asking, what happens if mom or dad is taken? ¿Quién va a pagar la renta? Who's going to take care of the mortgage? Who's going to go pick up the 7th grader or the kindergartner if in fact I'm not able to pick them up because I got abducted by ICE?
She continues on with some of her comments yesterday.
But you do need our solidarity. We need each member of this body to move the needle to real comprehensive immigration reform that reflects the values we claim as a nation. And so I'm going to say it, and I'm going to say it unapologetically. We don't need bans, we don't need walls, we don't need raids, we don't need kidnappings.
So you've got, again, that term, comprehensive immigration reform, while President Donald Trump's going through to try to enforce current immigration law and doing deportations, or at least starting that for a whole host of individuals over in California. As we heard, it's probably going to start soon in Chicago. You've got mass protests expected this weekend. Strap in. It's going to be an interesting
but we will not.
Interesting couple of days here. Of course, later on today, in less than an hour, as we go live here, you've got Governor J.B. Pritzker testifying in front of a U.S. House committee about the state's migrant sanctuary policies. This is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Be with us tomorrow, and we'll review that next.